everybody. Welcome to Take the Black Live, your from home, all the time, once a week, Wednesday afternoon show about all things, pop culture, sci-fi, fantasy, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Penny Dreadful's City of Angels this week, Westworld, Song of Ice and Fire, all manner of things we want to talk about that you want to hear about. I am Dan Selcke, editor of winteriscoming.net, and you are?
I'm Mia Johnson, entertainment editor at fansided.com. How's it going, Dan?
It's going pretty good. I feel like we could banter for a second, but it's going to be the same. How are you doing in quarantine?
Right.
I'm doing fine. How am I doing in quarantine? It's closed up. It's lonely. It's isolated. I don't know what I'm doing with myself.
We'll just record one session where we just say, I'm doing great. I watched a lot of stuff today. I'm inside. And then we can just put that in there and problem solved.
It's all the same. And thanks for everybody watching. Hey, Debbie, good to see you. Okay, the comments are a little bit different. Hey, Angela, Julie, good to see you. Sarah. The comments are like bunched in. I don't know about you guys, like
That's
Facebook changed over for me. There's like a new version, but
mine still looks the same, so
I'm not sure what happened. Anyway, as always, we have plenty of fun things to talk about today, including a potentially dicey topic we'll get to in a minute. But first, I wanted to go to that galaxy far, far away for a second, because as always, there's always things happening in Star Wars, isn't there? No matter what's happening, like if we get into the dead of this COVID-19 period and there's nothing happening anywhere in the world, somehow they're going to announce a new Star Wars show. I just know it. But no, we want to take a look at that because of a couple new news items. So there is a report that Disney has tapped the creator of the Netflix show Russian Doll, which I didn't watch, but apparently it was
It's so good. It's so good.
What's the, bullet point it really quick for us?
It's basically about this woman who it's her birthday. I think she ends up dying, but then she's basically on this live, die, repeat cycle, and she's trying to find out what the heck is happening. And then she meets somebody who else is going through the same thing.
Okay.
Sounds crazy fun.
Yeah, I mean, I, of course, heard it was very, very good and definitely got a lot of good press.
Mm-hmm.
And Disney has tapped the showrunner of it, whose name is Leslie Headland, to make a female-centric Star Wars show set in a different part of the Star Wars timeline on Disney+. Now, I think there were kind of two angles to go in for this. What's your take on that to begin with, that news?
I think kind of like everybody, my automatic response was an Ahsoka spinoff. I think the whole I don't know. Yeah, it could be its own separate thing as well. That was kind of my go-to, finally, they're moving ahead with it. There also could just be a completely brand new original character that they're going to go for. But yeah, that was just kind of my go-to.
Okay, so you think immediately Ahsoka, because I kind of did too. So, mainly what I've been concerned with is I hear that, and it just occurred to me, this time last year, do you remember this? There were no Star Wars shows on TV, and there was one on the way. It occurred to me that we were suddenly living in a world where we have, I think, 5 different ones currently either in production or on the way. So we got The Mandalorian second season of that is coming. We have a docuseries about the making of The Mandalorian coming in a couple of days.
May 4th.
We have a show about Cassian Andor from Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
We have an Obi-Wan Kenobi show starring Ewan McGregor. We have Jedi Temple Challenge, a game show hosted by the guy who played Jar Jar Binks, Ahmed Best. Can't forget that one.
Yeah.
And then we have... And they're doing the High Republic publishing kind of arm thing, which is not really a show, but it's still an effort. And now we have a female-centric show coming. So that's at least 6. Remember they said they're taking a hiatus from Star Wars for a while? What a load of crap that was.
That doesn't sound right at all.
And yeah, I agree with I agree with you that, I mean, I certainly hope this is an Ahsoka show, because if it's not, it means we're going to have 7. And that would be too much.
Yeah, it's a lot to pile on your plate. I'm sure some Star Wars fans would really mind that. And technically, if you think about it, the whole Mandalorian is kind of already set. The Mandalorian docuseries, it is what it is. It's a docuseries, so it's basically just 8 episodes of here's how we made it. Here's a couple of roundtables with the actors and the directors and all that. And so that kind of narrows it down to like maybe 2 or 3 like actual series. And then as well, I guess like the game show, which I have been completely forgetting about.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a manageable load, especially considering like there's going to be no more Clone Wars. That's finishing this week. And I'm not entirely sure about some of the other animated shows, but I think it's a big load, but it's kind of reasonable.
I disagree with you, Mia. I think it's
Oh,
a little unreasonable. 6 shows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whenever I see this much pylon, my alarm starts to go off and I start to think, okay, there might be a bubble coming up here. Just that much stuff. I never trust it. But
yeah.
I just want to bring to everybody's attention that if you're not interested in Star Wars, it's a horrible time for you. So Julie, I'm sorry, but the world is just nothing but Star Wars nowadays, apparently. I liked Mandalorian a lot. I just wonder if, like, I doubt you can keep up a level of quality with that many different programs.
Yeah. And I feel like at some point, one of these series, whether it's Obi-Wan or Cassian Andor, is going to get kind of a little niche to the point where it's like, okay, you really kind of only have to be a Star Wars fan to watch this. So you're only going to be interested, if you're a Star Wars fan. So yeah, and I just saw today there's like a report where the Obi-Wan series is kind of like overhauling the plot, where they were going to have it be based on Tatooine and maybe the planet where Luke Skywalker's from and all that. And it kind of sounded like they wanted to only be about Tatooine, and it's like, but there's no mention of Obi-Wan whatsoever. So I think they're really trying to hammer it out and figure like what's the best way to do this without like still making it The Mandalorian or Cassian Andor or whatever else is going to happen.
That's the thing. Like,
I have hope that they're working.
That's the thing. Like, if you're making a new series and you automatically start making it just like another series, is the solution to retool everything, or a solution to say maybe we don't need more than like 2 or 3 shows in the same universe? That's what I'd be asking myself.
That's a tough one. And I think this is something everybody, I think, kind of want to see Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. Sure. So that, to me, felt like a lock-in. Cassian Andor is obviously a surprise. I wouldn't say he was like a huge fan favorite character in Rogue One, but I think there's definitely at least something to him. So I really don't know. I think as a Star Wars fan, I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing what they're able to, crack out.
I hope you are pleased. And hello, Chris. And grossly not me. All right. So that's a Star Wars corner. Like, we can't not talk about it. There's always something happening in Star Wars. It's always happening. Okay, I want to talk about today a Song of Ice and Fire topic that is a little taboo, a little dangerous, a little racy, but I know it's definitely crossed my mind, and I'm sure it's crossed other people's minds, and I'm going to try to put it delicately, because there was some discussion about it lately, and I thought it was worth bringing up. All right. A Song of Ice and Fire is a popular fantasy series in the mind of author George R.R. Martin, going for 5 books. Hasn't been a book since 2011. There's going to be another one, hopefully any day now. We'll see. The one's in winter, then the spring. Someone, I think a Reddit commenter, I think it was Adam Whitehead, who was a respected fantasy author and apparently a friend of Martin's, according to Los Siete Reinos, a Spanish language Song of Ice and Fire site. They dug up this old Reddit comment from him where he was talking about the sort of dicey question of, if for some reason George R.R. Martin, who is in his 60s, can't finish A Song of Ice and Fire, is there a plan for what happens afterward in that eventuality? Now, this question is one that I don't love to talk about because, okay, fine. I'll just say it. The question is, if Martin dies, is there a way for this series to continue?
We're all adults here.
We're all adults, but it's kind of distasteful. And I know. But whatever, we're just going to ask it. And the research on it was actually pretty robust. So, are you aware, Mia, of any other instances where that kind of thing happened? Because there are a couple where an author died partway through writing a series and it either faded out or went on to be completed.
Nothing comes to mind right off the bat, actually. And I'm like thinking hard about this.
The big one is The Wheel of Time. So that's a giant fantasy
Okay.
series that also was just voluminous. I believe it's like the second longest fantasy series ever written. Robert Jordan dies in 2005, the author. And in that case, he got another author, Brandon Sanderson, to finish the last 3 books. And that ended up working out pretty well, by the way. Like, those were received well. Yeah, it was a success, more or less.
Yeah.
There are other times it doesn't work out as well. There are times when, like, Frank Herbert, the author of the Dune books, died in the 80s. His son kind of took over and just kind of put together some books that don't have a very good reputation. Like, they're not as good as the originals, people say.
Okay.
So it can go different ways. And Martin has been asked this question a couple of times throughout his career and given some great responses. Once at a convention in 2003, a fan asked, again, so diplomatically, is there a plan just in case, this fan asked. And Martin said, and I quote, "Nope, it's all in my head, so if I die, you are all shit out of luck." Which I love. I think it's a great response. Because, I mean, like, it's awkward, right?
Yeah.
This person is basically asking you, if you die, what happens?
Especially, you're saying this was in 2003, so he was, what, like 17 years young?
Yeah!
Thanks a lot, would be my response. Yeah, oh wow. Bold question, though. Very bold question to ask.
Bold question, sure. Yeah, I appreciate the gumption, I guess. He says we're all going to die one day. That's true. I should just get out of the headspace of being embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said that, but apparently that was more of, I think it reads, kind of a jokey answer. Like, yeah, if I get hit by a bus, I have no notes or anything, so you're shit out of luck, sure. But according to Whitehead, who, again, apparently is Martin's buddy and a respected author, which is why I'm willing to kind of quote him here, because I do think he has a good track record, has said that while Martin is, like, if he died, like, hit by a bus, asteroid, there's nothing, because he doesn't have any really notes. He does make it up as he goes along, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, he has, like, an outline rough, but not really anything set in stone. However, apparently, if it was more like a Robert Jordan situation, which was he died after a prolonged illness, and he, in that time, made copious notes, like an outline of what was supposed to happen, gave them off to this Brandon Sanderson author, who then finished the series. In that, Martin is open to that, is the word from Whitehead. So, in answer to the question, is there a plan just in case? I think there is.
That's what it sounds like, I guess.
Assuming that eventuality.
Yeah. Like you said, it's an unfortunate thing to think about, but I think just like the amount of popularity since even like 2003 that this series has accumulated, I think it's worth him maybe saying, okay, I need to keep something like in the bag just to break for emergencies type of thing. And yeah, I know that this feels so like weird to talk about. I mean, it also happens.
I'm nervous.
I'm thinking like politically, like all those like, what happens if the Queen dies? What happens? So
totally.
I feel like that's kind of where my brain is at right now, and I think that the thing that it kind of treads on, though, it's like, well, if it didn't all come from him, does it really matter? Is it really canon? And almost the same thing can kind of be said like about season 8 or whatever seasons followed that weren't technically part of the book. It's like, well, is this really canon? Are we going to choose to accept it, or does it even matter, really?
That's an interesting question, because I mean, Martin told them the ending, but it's a matter of he changes things as he goes, and so many of the details are different. It might feel very, very different. What do you think of the notion of, just in general, like a story being continued after the original author can't finish it? Just like the notion of it. I mean, Star Wars, for instance. I mean, George Lucas hasn't been writing Star Wars for a long time, but it's still going on. 6 shows and counting going on.
Yeah, I think that the overall notion of like handing something down to somebody, I think is generally, to me, I accept it. It even happens with like ghostwriting, right? You've got somebody who's able to mimic the voice well, or who knows the characters well enough to kind of continue on with that style, continue on with the characterization. I think just like really like,
It was Ghost.
I don't know why ghost writing,
Ghost
I didn't really write. Yeah. So it's like, I was going to say, the thing that jumps to my mind is kind of like fan fiction, because there's so many great writers out there who go like, undercover, and they just really crack out work that's great or greater than the style of the source text or the source material. So yeah, I think that kind of like, where you have different directors for a TV show or different writers or things like that, it can be done, and I don't really too much have a problem with it.
I guess I don't really either, but I mean, of course, Martin, by the way, is against fan fiction. He is anti-fan fiction. That's a whole fascinating topic on its own, by the way. Like, which authors are for, which authors are against it. Like, J.K. Rowling is into it, but only to a point. And it's very, very complicated and weird. Anne Rice hates it. George R. Martin isn't a fan. I mean, obviously, it's going to happen no matter what. I mean, when you get into this circumstance, you have, like, the legal claim to a story. It's like, yeah, folk are going to continue it no matter what. But it's like the option of, do you want to be like Lucas and just sell the rights for $4 billion and other folk are going to write into it? Or are you going to keep them close, which I think is what Martin tends to do.
Yeah.
And folk are going to make something anyway, but you're not going to get any money for it in that circumstance. Yeah, but in terms of, I mean, yeah, even if he were to pass away, I'm sure someone would complete the story, but it wouldn't be an official completion, which there is something to that. I mean, had The Wheel of Time ended when Robert Jordan died, I'm sure that plenty of fans would have stepped in and written their own versions, but we do have, post Robert Jordan's death, an official Wheel of Time series that I think is official in a way it wouldn't have been if it was just, a bunch of fans kind of all throwing in their 3, 4, 5 cents after the death.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, complicated issue.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't come to that, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Best case scenario, obviously, he gets to actually finish. So I think that's obviously, what everybody wants.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it's an absurd question to talk about either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially, well, I mean, it doesn't make me nervous to talk about it. So we should just move on, unless there are any questions.
Some knock on wood.
What do you guys think of this? I think he's stuck and doesn't know where to go. He should probably stop overthinking it, says Julie. Probably. Jacqueline says he's had more than ample time to finish this book. If it's not finished in quarantine, it never will be. And Martin Begg simply says, and with 30 question marks. Yeah, all excellent points, especially the and. But yeah, I just in case you were worried that there was no plan at all, it does sound like there's something more than nothing, but maybe not something entirely robust yet. Okay, we're out of that. I'm gonna take a sigh of just a relaxed breath.
Yeah.
That I don't have to be nervous anymore. I'm stepping on anybody's toes. Mia, you wanted to bring up a issue about circling back to our eternal overlords, Disney.
Yes. Yeah, so this was something that was brought up to me by one of our contributors who had found out that there is apparently a report that there's going to be a Mulan 2. Now, there's technically already a Mulan 2. I believe it was straight to video animation.
This is a sequel to the upcoming live-action Mulan, right?
The upcoming live-action Mulan, which technically that has not even come out.
It should have been out by now, though.
It should have been out.
Wasn't it like originally? It was out in March.
It was like late March that the live action was supposed to come out. They were promoting it. There were all these trailers online, on TV. And then Corona happened. It was one of like the first couple of movies to be, it did, that happened. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first movies to be moved. So far, it's moved to July 24th. Even that, to me, is starting to sound like, it's not so good. But nevertheless, it sounds like there will be a sequel, as well as I've also heard that there's Aladdin 2, live action Aladdin 2, currently in development. So that got us kind of wondering over on the fan-sided side of things, like, is this the future of Disney post-COVID? Because if you think about it right now, everybody is kind of in the red. Maybe Disney Plus is keeping afloat. Helping the company to stay
just fine.
Netflix has not had to worry at all. But some of the other folks who have been dependent on like putting their movies in theaters or doing, whatever else that has been stopped are, taking a hit. So we had kind of wondered, is this the future? Do you think it's feasible, or something that Disney would look into, is just creating more sequels, just saying, hey, you know what? This is a known franchise. We know all the characters. People know the characters. They can already probably tell you with their eyes closed it's not going to flop just because it is what it is. And yeah, it would bring in money. So I was wondering, like, do you think that this would be like a feasible plan for Disney? Is this something that we'll see more of in the future?
I have a surprisingly cynical take on this. You can believe that. I don't think this is post-COVID-19 Disney. I think this is the path Disney was going to anyway. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that Disney would line up a sequel to a sure-to-be successful blockbuster before it even opened. That makes perfect sense for them. I think all these Disney live-action remakes are basically cash-ins anyway. Like, some are more interesting than others. I think Mulan actually looks pretty cool.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
As far as the live-action remakes go, that one looks different enough to be like, okay, I'm interested in that. But like most of them, I'm not sure there's a reason for them to exist except for money.
Okay, so yeah, I have a really...
It doesn't shock me at all that they would do this, and I think they would do it with or without COVID.
Interesting. That leads me kind of to... It was like a tie-in piece to something that I had written about the old Disney Vault. The Disney Vault is that, big...
Vault. So mean that was.
Mysterious thing, where a movie is coming in.
From like the 90s or 2000s were like, we're going to put out a movie, a beloved child like Bambi, and then after it's out for like a month, it's going back in the vault. And like a giant graphic of just like a vault spinning closed and a locking door. Like, why would you?
Yeah.
It's that commercial, and you're locking it away from them.
Let me then give you a quick kind of like rundown of the vault and how that relates to the sequels and how you're actually kind of right. And I'll try not to take up too much time. But there's a really good video on Westworld Entertainment where they talk for like 20, 30 minutes about the vault. But to summarize it, when Disney started out, they were purely theatrical. People didn't have VHS, DVD. So they would rely on releasing their movies, like 5, 3 every so years. And this helped them keep money going and all that. Once VHS and everything came out, Disney was kind of stingy, and they said, we don't want our stuff being on that crap in people's homes, like DVDs and VHS. We want to have, this pure magical movie-going experience. So they were very selective about what they put out. Eventually that was not feasible. More people wanted VHSs. So they were like, okay, we'll still be snooty about it, but we're only going to release our DVDs or whatever, VHSs, every so often, so that we create like a fake demand. We can, inflate prices, and we can continue just to basically repackage old movies in a new way. You can only do that for so long. VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, you kind of hit the end of the line with streaming. So what someone had hypothesized was that live action sequels were just a new way for Disney to like repackage old movies without, having to put in too much effort to create new ones.
1,000,000%. Yes. That's exactly what's happening. I love that theory. I think it's a great theory. Talking about seeing movies in theaters and that being a strategy to like kind of be a prestige release, I've read a lot about how, because everything is closing down right now, obviously no theaters are open and no productions are going on, and studios have had some success releasing things to streaming only. Like Universal released this Trolls World Tour thing, which is going to be a theater thing to streaming. It's going to hasten the process that was already happening, where theaters aren't going to matter as much. Because, look, I know that we still don't have like all home theaters in our homes, but the screens are getting pretty big.
Yeah, and quality is crystal clear, and
like I think that there's a point where like it's gonna meet where maybe it would be cool to go to a giant screen, but you have this pretty big screen at home, and you have the privacy and snacks and everything, and that this crisis. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say what's interesting though is like even with your phone, it's like I will straight up just watch stuff on my phone. So it's like sometimes it even doesn't matter if you have a large TV to watch a movie or a video. It's like I'll just watch it on my phone.
Oh yeah, I have not done that yet. I'm afraid of that, honestly, for some reason, but I won't. But anyway, the idea is that this crisis is going to just accelerate that.
Yeah.
When we think about the end of this, theaters aren't going to be as important anymore, just because studios will get used to doing things through streaming.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a bit of a shakeup. Did you hear that Universal said that because the Trolls was so successful, it's going to start releasing all of its movies both in theaters and through streaming? And then
go ahead.
Yeah, and then the AMC president, who AMC obviously has 1,000 theaters throughout the world, said, if you do that, we will no longer show any Universal movies in theaters. So, like, this is tense. This is a war.
Yeah.
This is going to be big.
Yeah. It was, like, weird because it was, like, at first the streaming wars was technically just within the streaming platforms. And now it's, like, streaming wars against, well, I feel like it's almost been streaming, against movie theaters, but now more than ever, they're like, hey, wait a minute. And if you think about it, if you go direct to video, I believe the studios get to keep more of the profit because they don't have to split it with the theater. So they're like, but yeah, so that's what's going on. It did make me wonder, and we don't have to talk about this too long, but it's like, since you did have like all those direct to video sequels, it's like, is that no longer canon? All the Aladdin stuff that happened, like King of Thieves.
I did see Aladdin 2 back in the day, way back when I was a little boy.
So I wonder how that, unless they might take some elements from those sequels, but like, let's be real, like Cinderella 2 and Cinderella 3 are not great movies and they don't need to be replicated. So I actually wouldn't have a problem if those were forgotten by history.
I mean, my take on that is like, who cares about the Disney video sequels? Like, if you want to talk about shameless cash grabs, give me a break. Yeah. Like that's all those were. I mean, if you love them, great. I'm happy you love them, but I don't feel like those are treasures.
No. So yeah, that's what's going on with Disney. They'll figure it out. Bob Iger is, he is back in the reins, so to speak. So I have faith in him, or at least I hope I do.
Again, like, I keep complaining about Disney and all these things that seem like they're bad, but I also keep having to admit that really they haven't really, at least in terms of Marvel anyway, disappointed me.
Yeah.
So, do what you do and we'll see what happens. Although really, honest to God, Marvel's the only one that's like really been killing it. I have not liked those live action remakes. I have not liked the Star Wars, so maybe I am right when I whine and complain, yell and stuff. Wait,
you can be a consultant, yeah.
But let's get some comments. We've gotten some good ones. Yeah. Jacqueline says, I bet it was an actual vault. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
It's like they actually had just a giant
lock it away.
They locked and put them away. It just always seems so cruel to me, those commercials.
I know.
Like, this beloved movie in front of kids who want to see it, and then you put it behind an impenetrable wall they would have to break in with like dynamite or something.
Like, hey, kids, tell your parents to spend money now.
It seemed a bit extra. It seemed a bit much. But it was like the Michael Eisner days, I think.
Oh, yes.
So fascinating Disney history. And Jacqueline says to bring back drive-in movies, which I believe they have seen a resurgence during this time of coronavirus. Because obviously you can
social distance in a way.
Yeah. Just be in your car and not touch anybody and watch the movie. I'm not really sure how realistic it is to like bring them back, but yeah, I mean that's obviously a good business model.
Yeah,
it'd be cool that if they came back some way. And Jack also says, and I kind of agree with this, there's something special about the theater. The popcorn, the sound makes it more exciting than screening at home. Lisa says, I hope we never lose theaters. Such a wonderful experience seeing it from the big screen. I do agree. I love going to movie theaters. And I got to tell you, like, I sometimes hear people say, like, ugh, I hate going. Everyone's so loud and, like, the food's disgusting. The seats are gross. I'm like, where are you going? Like, it's not, like, perfect, but I've never had, like, a terrible theater experience. I do love going to theater.
Yeah. It's kind of almost like going out to like a sporting event, depending on the movie you see, where I'm thinking about Avengers Endgame, where like this week, or like yesterday, basically, the Russo brothers had shared a clip that they filmed where everybody was like cheering at kind of the end. It was so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like the communal experience of like reacting to something great with a whole crowd of people. Like, yeah, you're not going to get that at home. I mean, I do agree with the pundits who are saying that there might be a leveling off. I agree with Sarah Jackman, who said that they're not really going to go away. Of course, there'll always be a place. That place might be reduced as more people do choose to just opt not to go. But I agree. There's definitely something special about it. And again, I've always just been mystified by people who just rail against it and hate it. I'm like, really? Nothing you like? Okay, fine.
I think there's certain movie theaters. There's one in one area where I know every time there's going to be kids whining and, you know, phones going off. So I have to be selective unless I want, like, cheap tickets or something.
Right. I'm looking forward to them opening up again. And Debbie says, it's sad to think of today's children never going to the movies. I think that they will still go, just it won't be as big of a thing. It'll kind of be like a little bit like drive-ins, where they still exist technically.
Right.
But not.
Yeah, it's kind of like you won't know what you don't have. Like, I don't know about drive-ins, so it's not really an experience that I can say I missed because I've never experienced it.
I never have gone. Maybe I'll look some up. If there's one open around here and I can't go to the real theater, it could be worse. Okay. Now let's go talk about, Mia, what have we been watching this week? And I think we have to start with, we are plugging on
Westworld.
Westworld. By the way, I apologize to watchers if I'm going to come off as a cynical douchebag this week, but it might happen. Mia,
well,
what did you think of Past Pawn, the most recent episode of the TV show Westworld?
Yeah, you mean the Dolores show? That's what I've been calling it.
Definitely the Dolores show.
It is no longer Westworld to me. This one was. It got to me. It was a little. I wouldn't say getting into the absurd, but to me, it kind of reached levels of like superhero bad guy antics, where we run into this big AI machine, Solomon, who's like the machine that's running now, and you find out that like Sirach's got this master. It reminded me of like a classic villain who's like, yes, my plan is to take over the world or make the world better, and I'm like, oh. Maybe there's something about world domination that seems a little cheesy to me, like, you know, been there, done that. And they revealed some things about Caleb's past, which to me, I won't say I predicted it, but I did like when they were talking about his friend Francis. I was like, I know he's got something to do with this. I already know that, you know, like, they're making it too easy.
You knew there was a twist coming. You weren't sure what the twist was, but like, there's obviously more to it than they're saying, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and the whole kind of like, I guess, cliffhanger twist about leaving it to Caleb and having him take the fall. I don't really know how I feel about that. It just doesn't seem that mind-blowing to me, and I won't say I was 100%, you know, satisfied with this episode.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, here's what you said about Sirach kind of being a supervillain. I feel like they started with the conclusion of the humans are just like the hosts. That'll be the metaphor we're going with. And then like constructed a reality around that. But like, rather than just thinking, okay, what would the characters do next if they just got out into the world? So they had to make this supervillain Sirach, who I agree is just sort of cheesy. Okay, some problems, though, are left over from the other season. Like, I rolled my eyes real damn hard when Caleb asked Dolores, like, where are you taking me? Where are we going? And she said, like, we're going to recover something that was lost, something that was taken. And I'm like, Dolores, just give him an address.
Yeah.
Like, she never, ever says what she means. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
Another thing that bugged me was they're out looking for this kind of super AI in the American West, right? And it recalls the kind of Westworld landscape, and it's all Arizona, New Mexico, whatever out there. And she tells him that, oh, what I want is like a land for my people to defend. And I'm like, why haven't we been... Why are we only finding that out now? Like, this show is so bad at giving motivations to its characters. Like, I never know what she wants. I never know what she's going for. And, like, they just slip that in the penultimate episode. And it's like, this should have been the drive for the whole time.
Literally, when she said that, I was like, that's Westworld. Westworld is the place for your people. I thought that her thing was she wanted to integrate the host and with humanity. That to me sounds like something that you can fight for. I think she could find some space to rent out for her and the host to live without, destroying all of humanity. So, yeah.
But like that could be the goal. But instead we have this long, drawn-out thing where you don't quite know what she wants. Like, no one seems to. Caleb doesn't. Sirach doesn't. It's a revolution. What kind of revolution? Also, where are all the extras? Like, the sets are so empty. Like, that big warehouse they were in. Like, they killed 4 guards, but there's no technician. There's nobody tending to the comatose bodies. I don't love this show.
I think it's the way, like the extras, or even just the cast that's not Dolores, and a little bit of Maeve. Kind of like at the beginning, we saw Masashi Hanayaro, I believe is how you say her name, came back, and of course Clementine came back. Everybody was so excited. I was like, yeah. Now they're all gonna come together and they're gonna fight Dolores. And they were only in for like the first 5 minutes of the show. I was like, what is that all about? You bring them on and you say, okay, that's enough. I hope you enjoy the fan service.
We have a writer, Daniel DeVita, who writes our Westworld reviews. He's loving it. I wouldn't mind getting him on the show and talking about like.
That'd be interesting, for the finale.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah. We just grill him the entire time. It's not nice.
Julie says, my main problem is working out who is real, who is fake, whose side is crazy. Yeah, it's interesting. And she agrees you can see that coming. Jacqueline says that she loves Outlander and wants to start watching Last Kingdom. I'm watching Last Kingdom now. It comes highly recommended. I think you probably should, Jacqueline. And we'll have someone on the plan, or at least my plan is to have someone on next week talk about The Last Kingdom, because it just dropped the entire 4th season on Netflix. I figure give people like a week to watch it, but I'd love to talk about it next week. And yeah, Outlander apparently is killing it. Outlander is giving up big, satisfying, long-term moments week after week.
Something is good on television.
You know what I think is pretty good on television that I watched? The premiere episode this past Sunday was Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. Has anybody watched that? So this is a new show on Showtime. The sequel to the old Penny Dreadful show, which is kind of set in Victorian. This one's set in 1930s Los Angeles. And it stars Natalie Dormer from Game of Thrones, Marjorie Tyrell, as a demoness named Magda, who wants to prove that humanity is a bunch of gross, disgusting cesspool monsters. And it's set during the lead up to World War II, so she has a lot to work with. Last week I talked about it a bit. It's an ambitious show. It follows like a newly made detective in the LAPD. It's the first kind of detective in the LAPD. Tiago Vega. His partner is Nathan Lane, which is fun. Always fun to see Nathan Lane stuff. Timon or Pumbaa, one of them. I forget which one. They're investigating a murder. Magda is trying to push humanity to war. There are Nazis involved in building a freeway. It sounds like a lot, and it is.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I watched the premiere episode. I thought it came together quite nicely. I thought it had a ton of atmosphere. I thought the characters were all convincingly written. Like, I described that to you, and it sounds like it's kind of biting off more than it can chew. And I'm afraid it might if it goes on. But the premiere, I thought, held together very well. It looks like it's the kind of show that clearly has conviction behind it, which I love. And if it holds together, could be really, really special.
God. Now, I asked you this in the Slack, but it might be worth asking again for the people out there as a disclaimer. Is this scary, or is it, sometimes I get a little antsy about those types of things?
I would say no, it is not scary. Like, the first Penny Dreadful was more of a horror show, but even that wasn't really. I mean, they fought like monsters and Draculas and witches and stuff, but it was more about the characters, and this one especially. Like, this one, you can tell the guy writing it has like a metaphorical political agenda. He's like trying to kind of parallel this pre-World War II time of rising nationalism with our current time. And he's more concerned with kind of having that discussion than spooking you. There was one bit with kind of a Spirit of the Dead that was a little spooky, but it was one scene. And there was a the police story revolves around a murder. And, it's TV, so of course they were killed brutally and laid out in a weird pentagram shape, and their bodies are mutilated. It's standard serial killer stuff. But those are pretty quick. So far, no. I would say it is not horror.
Okay.
The climax was it was pretty dramatic. It was very dramatic. It was a shootout between the main character, who's on the LAPD, and he has to help the police build this freeway through the poor Mexican-American neighborhood where his family lives. So he's on the one side, his family's on the other. What's going to happen? Very dramatic. But, it's like that. It's drama. There's no horror involved in that.
Okay.
And I really dug it.
Awesome. And I realized that I'm psyching myself out because I kind of built up a tolerance for that when I forced myself to watch Hannibal, which had a lot of horrendous atrocities in that show.
Yeah, that one was rough.
So I think I need to lend myself a little bit more credit that, if there's something minuscule on Penny Dreadful, then I could probably stomach it.
Like Hannibal was about a crazy doctor who ate people.
Yeah.
This is about a police officer. It's the
I've been selling myself short. Yeah.
By the way, for everyone watching, I know that it is on Showtime, but it's also on the first episode is on YouTube. Just released the entire thing on YouTube.
For free, yeah.
So if you want to watch it for free on YouTube, you can. If you like.
A little Natalie Dormer action in. Oh, I love.
So yeah, I recommend it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Anything else you want to say before we wrap this up, Mia?
No. I am looking forward to what happens next in Westworld. I don't think I'm gonna get an early preview, so it's every single second of this new episode is probably gonna be new to me. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, they've given us the advanced episodes all this time, but I think it's over now.
Yeah.
And if you want to ask questions of us and have us answer you next time, feel free to leave comments below or go on iTunes, give us a little review, and leave a comment, and we would be happy to take it in stride and give it a nice, thorough, wonderful answer. You know what? I didn't check beforehand if there was anything that they left us. But next time, I will definitely be conscientious about that. Oh, God. You know what? Give me one. Okay, really quick second. I'm going to be so fast here.
Awesome. I get to entertain the crowd with my stand-up routine.
And entertain us very fast.
Yeah, what's the deal with airline food? I'm opening with that one. Oh, dang it.
Okay, ratings and reviews. Okay, whew, nothing new. Great, I'm glad I did that. But that's an option. There's also the Wit Club. Buy a Wit Club t-shirt. Get into the Wit Club. We do extra articles, extra videos, a prize a month. There'll be the new one coming out soon. And for Peter, I know you won the last one. Bizarrely, it's still coming, but it is on its way. Don't worry. And that's about all I have for this week. Anything else, Mia?
No, I'm ready to end this.
As always, it was a delight talking to you. Thanks everybody watching. We'll be back next week. And yeah, YouTube for the first episode of Penny Dreadful. It was right.
Yeah,
just the premiere, but it's on there. And we'll be back next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. More discussion, more analysis, more sci-fi, more fantasy, more me, more Mia, possibly a special guest. And we will see you then right here on our Facebook page. Bye, everybody.
Bye.